Well, hi everybody and welcome. What you see before you is, I don't even know where to begin describing this. Well, I'll tell you its name first. It is a Telewatt. There's the nameplate. Telewatt high fidelity stereo amplifier VS-71 from Klein HUmmel from Stuttgart. It is a tube amp. You can see some shiny stuff going on. It weighs a ton. It's absolutely heavy. It looks like a piece of industrial equipment. Very typically German. Function was everything. Form, well, we'll think about that later. You can make selections between your inputs: microphone, tape, phono, and 2 radio inputs. And then you can select balance, volume, bass, treble, and you have a loud and soft switch position. And then your output you can also select. You can either have left only, right only, mono, which is the A plus B channels running together at a higher power output, bridge mode, stereo, which is the normal, and inverted stereo. Swap the channels around when you get bored. And on the right hand side, a multi-filter pre-select switch. So 2 rumble filters, 60 and 120 Hertz, normal, whatever that means, and then noise filters, 4K and 8K. So really basic, but absolutely breathtaking. I was reading through the circuit diagram and the spec is just insane. The customer says that one channel is not working. So we're going to find out exactly what's going on. I'm going to turn it around and I'll show you the back, and then I'll get it out of the case and show you the inside. So let's get a look in the back. The first thing you see is this big terminal script, and there's a screw missing, which is a shame. We'll see what we can do about that. But there we go. Right hand channel, channel B. There are the mono connections for the 3rd channel, you can say. Otherwise, you've got the 0 volts, 4, 8, 16 volts. 0, 4, 8, 16 ohm speaker connections. And then the same for the other channel. And in the middle, for the mono operation. And there it's less obvious what's going on over here. Mono 3 channel. And it says, take note of the operator's manual for that. Over here we have a little potentiometer that says brum. Brum means hum. So that is the hum cancelling, where the null point of the heater supply between the plus and minus 6 volt is set to cancel out any hum coming from the filament heating. And then we've got input levels for the radio. 2 radio, left and right, left and right. So those need to be brought up. And then, for test purposes that is, yeah. And then again for the tape player, also the input left and right. And finally we have a look at the inputs. So over here it says fern rechts. That seems to be a remote control. So I just pushed this into any socket that I could find. But there we have it, radio 2, radio 1, the tape, the microphone, the magnetic pickup for the phono, or the crystal piezo type. So a lot of features, but look what's behind there. Enormous transformer, 1 of 2. There's 2 side by side in there for the 2 channels. Inside of there we see our 4 big tubes, and then the power transformer over here. So under the feet there are some screws which need to be removed, and then we can have a look inside. And it's out of the cabinet. Cabinet's down on the floor here, and by the way, that cabinet weighs easily 3 kilograms. That is a solid cabinet, but it needs it. because, oops, I'm just rearranging it. It needs it because it's got a lot of iron. Power transformer, 2 output transformers, and 4 tubes that are over here designated as being an EL500. These are the output tubes over here, right? But in fact, I believe these are replacement tubes, and these are EL504s, which drop right in. No changes necessary. But the EL500 is frightfully expensive, if you can find one. Even the EL4s are not cheap. So we're now going to take a look at what's going on with this radio, but let's just identify some of the components. Let me get my pointing stick out there, and we'll come in here. So down there is a selenium rectifier, which apparently gives 6 volts DC to some of the heaters, apparently especially to the 2 driver tubes, to optimize the silent operation. Lots of filter capacitors all over the place. 1, 2, 3, 4. Underneath the chassis there are more. What else have we got? Up here, this is the filter board, and it's an active filter board. 2 tubes operating as in the filter board. Also some kind of a, I don't know, phenolic, don't know, very interesting. But that's where the switches make contact and the filters go on. Here's where the stereo mono switching takes place for the inputs and the for the outputs. So some heavy gauge wires going back to the back there, and then right up against the front panel, of course, are different selector switches for stereo, mono, volume, tone, etc. And at the back here, just a nicer view of the back panel again. We have voltage selector, can go up to 240 volts. It's set to 220 at the moment, and that might be a thing that's worthwhile idea, is to set it to 240. That looks like a fuse. Yeah, no, it's a broken off knob for the selector. Alright, so that needs a bit of glue. No problem. These tubes here, and all of these tubes look like they've been replaced. See how nice and clean they are? And the glass is still shiny. So, yeah, these look like Russian tubes. Those are definitely Russian tubes. And I think they're actually supposed to be ECC83s. So, some more tubes at the back here. Preamp tubes, I'm thinking. So how many tubes in total? There's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 tubes. That's a lot of tubes. That's why we need all this iron. So I'm going to flip it up on the side and we can get a look underneath. So here we are in the bottom of this amp. And what a sight it is to behold. That's a lot of circuitry. Look at that. All point to point, very few boards. A couple of tag strips, terminal strips. But everything looks to be in really good condition. I don't know that this was worked on. The only thing I do seem to see is that down here at this filter capacitor, that seems to have received a little bit of attention for some reason. So that might be a clue as to what's wrong now. But also what I've noticed is some of these capacitors are a little bit discolored compared to the same manufacturer sitting right next to it. So these might have seen a bit of heat or gone a little bit conductive. Good to check the voltages at those capacitors and see what's going on. Lots of these old yellow bombs, they tend to be okay. I've seen these in German tube radios before and never had any issues with them. Maybe 1 or 2 glaringly obvious issues, but a full recap on this would be frightfully expensive, and I would then want to source the best components I could get, probably from the guys who do the guitar amps. They tend to keep the best capacitors for this kind of job. But all in all, what a beautiful set. What a beautiful piece of equipment. And I'm looking forward to getting it going again. When you look at the old grey housing that stood under it, I mean, to cover all this up is actually a shame. I would have had some kind of a see-through cabinet, because even this chassis is strong enough to handle everything. This is really, really high grade steel chassis. Unbelievable. Look at this, look at the thickness, the gauge of the metal for the mounting brackets. It's just super solid. So this is going to be fun. So that's the introductory video, and hope you stay with me, and I'll get this thing back to life again. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.